Dimensius, the all-devouring, is going to be the last boss of the raid. But we're going to give you the details that we can figure out from the journal. Catch us in a video later once we've actually secured the kill to find out more about this boss and be able to see the actual strategies. This is all just going to be theoretical. The platform you start on is a giant crescent. You should split your raid up into 2 separate teams that are each on each end of the crescent. He's going to be doing different effects that affect an entire group and mark them with a debuff that makes it that if they take the effect again, everybody's going to die. So you're going to need to trade your groups back and forth between groups 1 and 2. He's going to occasionally smash the tank for 25 million damage and then create a ripple effect that goes outwards, dealing more damage to nearby targets, and affecting all targets hit by a debuff that'll increase damage taken from this effect by 100%. After receiving this, the tank swap should occur, and the team that just got hit is going to deal with a new mob called Living Mass. After killing this creature, it drops excess mass globules around the room. Players can pick these up and carry them around the field. If 2 of them get close to each other, they create a field around them that slows all targets in the area and applies collective gravity to players inside. Eventually, the boss is going to try to cast Devour, and any players that do not have a collective gravity level stronger than his current hunger level is going to get sucked into him and instantly killed. This means players need to pick up these excess mass and get them together based off of whichever level of hunger the boss is currently at. It looks like throughout this phase, he's going to be constantly gaining hunger levels, so at the start, you're going to need 2 of them to get together, and then you're slowly going to need to bring more and more into the field, slowing your players down even more, but making sure that you can survive the Devour. Both teams need to successfully get the right amount of stacks of these excess mass before Devour gets cast, or else their players get pulled in and killed. He's going to smash dark matter into the platform, making all players detonate for damage within 4 yards of them, and then leaving pools underneath them that deal big damage over time. This is going to be a spread out in a clumped group along the edge and drop as many puddles as close together as possible, and then quickly get out of the area as these puddles take up room. This is going to make you slowly lose space around the crescent, and you're going to be moving your 2 groups together towards the middle. This is a little bit of a softened rage because if you get too close to each other, everybody's going to be affected by the debuff that increases the damage you take by 100% of future hits, and eventually you're going to wipe. He's going to mark 2 locations on the field and create antimatter zones at these locations. After delay, these things detonate for huge damage onto the entire raid as a raid wipe mechanic. Now, every player that gets near the field before it detonates is going to take a chunk of damage and reduce the explosion value of each of these spheres by the amount of damage that they took. So you're going to need to rotate your players through, having players get close to one of these fields and taking the blast of damage as much as they can survive through, and then moving away once their HP gets low. You're going to need all of your different members of your group to get close enough and absorb some of the damage from this before it erupts and kills your raid. Immunity effects should help with this, so you're going to be able to use things like Anti-Magic Shell or Turtle to be able to absorb quite a bit of value out of these fields before they detonate. You have 10 seconds to figure out how much to absorb before the wipe occurs. Reverse gravity is going to mark several players and launch them up into the air. These players are then going to uncontrollably begin floating towards the boss, and if they touch him, they die. Also, if any player that is affected by this and is floating towards the boss is blasted by another set of reverse gravity circles, they'll instantly be killed. When players are marked by these, they're going to get launched up, and then the current sets of players with the excess mass debuff that are moving around slowly around the field are going to need to work together to get underneath the floating player and pull them back down to the ground with the excess mass. This will be a coordinated effort of sets of 2 players that are affected by extra mass, moving about and trying to catch and save your floating teammates. If at any time your tank is not within melee range of the boss, he's going to pull that tank in and then smash them for damage. This extra damage will also knock all targets around that target away and deal damage to them as well. So you need to make sure your tanks are always within range when they currently have threat. Eventually, we're not sure when, there's going to be an intermission while all players get pulled into the event horizon, and Xalatath comes in to save the party. She's going to apply a buff to all players that allows you to mount up on your flying mounts, and you're going to begin a dragon riding event where you're going to need to fly around and collect extra orbs, dodging effects, and flying to the next platform. This is going to feel very similar, I think, to the Tindral intermission, where you're just flying about, avoiding orbs, and this time there's going to be beams and stuff. It's going to be intense. At your destination, there's going to be some Void Lords that are powerful NPCs. There's going to be stellar cores scattered throughout the area as you're flying about, and every stellar core gathered by a player is going to deal 5% of the Void Lord's HP when that player lands. We don't know how many cores there's going to be, but we assume gathering as many of these as possible so you slam down and take huge chunks off of the Void Lords is going to be necessary. After the flying phase, there's 2 different platforms you have to split your raid up into. On each of these platforms is one of the 2 devoured lords, Artosian or Pargoth. And your raid's going to have to deal with these 2 lords, taking them down while dealing with boss mechanics of him throwing moons at you and gamma bursting, pushing everybody backwards. You're going to have to watch out for the line the extinction moon is coming down and dodge out of the way or take massive damage and be stunned, while making sure you don't get pushed off the platform. When fighting Artosian, you're going to be dealing with mass ejection. This is a line attack in front of him that does massive damage to any target hit. On Heroic and higher, this leaves behind a debris field that massively slows targets and does huge damage, so you're slowly going to run out of room on this platform as you're taking the boss down. Artosian is going to summon a phalanx of Void Wardens to secure his territory. This is likely going to be a line of these mobs that charges towards the players. These creatures, if you get close to them, you get knocked back and take a huge amount of damage. Ranged DPS are going to need to kill one of the Void Wardens that's selected, and then all players have to funnel into the now open hole in the wall as the rest of the wall goes past. At the same time, Nullbinders are going to be around slowing down the player's movement. Melee DPS are going to be taking these things out to make sure the whole team can move to the appropriate hole in the incoming phalanx. For Pargoth, instead of line attacks, he does an AoE 10-yard radius circle around him that he'll deal damage to targets, and then on Heroic and higher, leave behind that debris field. Other than that change, he also does the same Void Warden line and summons Nullbinders. He also has the Touch of Oblivion ability, which stacks that stacking debuff on the tank. If the tank reaches 15 applications, the target gets co-signed to Oblivion. Since both of the mobs have the same ability with the same names, I don't think that there's a tank swap option, and this is really just going to mean that you have to kill this boss before it manages to strike your tank 15 times, I guess? We'll see how that all plays out. Once both these mobs are dealt with, you're going to be going into Stage 3, Singularity. Dimensius is back, and any player that touches him is instantly killed. He's going to become destabilized by Xal'atath, increasing all damage taken by 100% until he's recovered. We're not sure when this is going to occur. Xal'atath might blast him occasionally, making him vulnerable, or this might happen at the very start of this phase for a quick burn phase. As you're damaging him, he's going to be losing mass, and these mass globules are going to pile up on the outside of the arena, dealing damage to anybody that gets near them and knocking them away. This is probably going to make you slowly lose arena as more of his globules pile up. In this phase, he's going to call down 8 Void Stars. These are going to slam down around him, dealing massive damage to anybody caught in the area that they land, and then doing pretty consistent damage to any targets that remain inside their area. But it says players that are within the gravity well of one of these stars cannot be devoured by the boss. So likely there's a point in this part of the fight where all players need to mass up inside these stars, receiving massive healing before they get devoured. When he reaches 100 energy, he begins a massive suction that's going to pull all players into him and consume them. Any player not within one of these gravity wells is going to immediately be flung into him and die. Every time he does this, he gets a stack of density, which is going to increase the damage he deals with his cosmic radiation ability, which is essentially just constant damage over time that he does ticking. So this is a soft enrage mechanic that's eventually going to wipe you out. A while after summoning the Void Stars, he's going to begin supernovas. This detonates the star and deals damage based off distance away from it. This is going to now be replaced by a black hole, which is going to continue orbiting around the boss. Any player that touches the black hole gets spaghettified. That's right, spaghettification instantly kills your character. Don't get close to black holes. Several players are going to get Void Grasp on them, which reduces their movement speed drastically and does heal focus damage onto those targets. Healers are going to need to watch for this Void Grasp debuff going out and make sure to top off those players. If anybody's not in range of the boss, he's going to pull his current target to him and then punch them for a chunk of damage. So make sure your tanks are always in range of the boss. Darkened Sky is going to call down a series of massive celestial objects. These are going to deal 31 million damage to anybody in the impact zone and then radiate a 12-yard shockwave around it. If you get hit by one of these shockwaves, you're going to take a chunk of damage and then receive a debuff that increases damage taken by 300% from future shockwaves. These likely are going to be targeted on specific players. Players need to spread out widely around the arena and then move out of the impact zone of these celestial objects, receiving the shockwave, but being out of the range of the other shockwave abilities. If any of these are stacked up at the same point, players are going to die from receiving a double shockwave. He does a big tank buster on the tank for 26 million damage. This blast on heroic and higher difficulties is going to pull players 20 yards towards the impact location. So you're all going to get flung towards where the tank is at. Anybody near the tank is going to be taking the same chunk of damage as the tank. So these guys have to be in a solo point, but you want to make sure that there's nothing dangerous between you and the tank when this goes out, because everybody's going to get pulled to that location. This attack puts a stacking debuff on the target, so make sure to taunt swap. While dealing with this constant crashing of celestial bodies into the ground, you're going to be constantly taking that increased damage over time from cosmic radiation until you eventually die or take down this giant boss. As soon as we get this guy down, we're going to have a live kill video of him, as well as be working on our normal version of the Dimensius guide as soon as possible. I'm Zesty Fresh from Sazazet Games, and we'll catch you guys next time.